Hey YouTube, I know it's been a while, so yeah, a lot of you guys have some interesting things to say about my Iron Fist video, so I wanted to give my opinions on the Iron Fist show in general, and then I'm going to go into some responses to some of the general comments I got. Alright, so this review, Iron Fist is bad. It's not a good show. It's not as bad as the critics say, but it's still pretty bad. Iron Fist has a really slow first half, alright? In the first 6 episodes of the show, a lot of it's about, okay, who is Danny Rand? Is he the real Iron Fist? There's a lot of boardroom scenes. There are so many business room scenes in this show that just shouldn't be there at all. Like, it takes away from the, you know, mystical martial arts aspect, and no one's watching Iron Fist to see a bunch of rich people talk about money in a boardroom. So, total misdirection with the boardroom scenes. Another thing is that the action was just not very good. If you actually look at the action scenes, there are so many cuts, and if you pause, you can even see the stunt doubles in a lot of shots. And I'd expect this from some other shows, like say like Arrow and like Legends of Tomorrow and stuff like that. But with Iron Fist, it was just not acceptable. I mean, out of all the Marvel properties, Iron Fist is supposed to be the guy that knows martial arts really well, and the stuff you see is like, like Daredevil has much better fight scenes, and that's part of the problem, is that the other Marvel Netflix shows have set such a high standard that you're looking at Iron Fist and you're like, what happened? I read somewhere that the actors only had like a few hours to learn the martial arts rules before they started shooting, especially for Finn Jones. I think Colleen had more time to train, I think, but Finn Jones did not have that much time to really learn how to fight, and you can really see that in the show because they rely on a stunt double a lot, and a lot of the fight scenes, I don't know, they just don't have a lot of impact. So that's not, I'm not even going after actors as much when I talk about this, but really just Marvel, the director and the leadership, you know, if you're going to do a martial arts show, give your actors the time to actually know how to do the moves and fake the moves, you know, convincingly. Danny Rand as a character is just not that interesting to follow. I mean, it's a typical, like, you know, rich guy who's been away, comes back and tries to get his life back together, but I don't know, he was just so, like, whiny. And I guess when I expected, like, the character of Iron Fist, I wanted him to come off as wiser and more confident. I wanted him to feel like he knows what he's doing, because like with Danny Rand, sometimes he's a little confident, a little like overconfident, and then other times he's like a noob and he doesn't know anything. So yeah, it's just, Danny Rand was a really hard character to like, and it takes you way too long to get invested in really his story, as opposed to the other Defenders where I feel like I really cared about them a lot earlier on. And part of it, I think, is because Iron Fist doesn't have many flashbacks at all. There are like hints of him like getting in a plane crash and whatnot, but Jessica Jones, Daredevil, and Luke Cage both had complete flashback episodes, and these helped flesh out the characters so we knew where they came from, we got them, but we don't get that with Danny. So on a positive note, Colleen Wing, Madame Gao, and Claire Temple are all good in this. If you've liked Madame Gao and Claire Temple before, they're pretty much on their same beats. I mean, Madame Gao's menacing. Claire Temple, you know, Rosario Dawson again, you know, that's Bae. You know, she does her healing thing, and they actually give her some action scenes this time around, which is cool, but you still kind of feel like, okay, well, Claire's been doing the same thing in all these shows, you know. When is her character gonna gotta grow out of just being like everybody's nurse? As far as the new characters, Colleen Wing is pretty much one of the few characters I really liked. There were a couple characters that were introduced in the second half that were kind of interesting, but by then I cared less and less about the show, so at that point I just wanted to finish and I didn't care about learning about them too much. But Colleen Wing, her story is interesting, and they come up with a pretty cool twist with her character later. But I really wish that the actress and the character were in a better show. Colleen Wing is good in this, but I feel like the way the show is directed and the way the story is, she's not given as much love as she could have gotten. And even the twist with her, again, by the time it happens, you really don't care about the show, and if you're binge watching it like I did, you just want to finish. There are connections to the broader Marvel universe, you know, there are references to the other three Defenders and kind of what they've been up to, but nothing too crazy. There's really no lead into what the plot of Defenders is going to be like in this show, so if you're watching it purely because you want to know what happens in Marvel shows, you could read a Wikipedia synopsis and be okay. You don't really have to, there's nothing you really have to like watch Iron Fist like to really like, oh man, I gotta know what happens in Defenders. You know, the big thing is that the villains in Iron Fist are the Hand, which are the same villains that showed up in Daredevil Season 1 and Season 2, but it's like a different faction of the Hand, so there really aren't that many connections to Daredevil itself, except that you know that they're an evil ninja assassin mercenary group, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, I know this review's been kind of quick. Again, I didn't like Iron Fist that much, so I'm not gonna go into too many details. If you're a Marvel fanboy, at this point you've probably already seen it. If you're not that into Marvel, or you kind of dabble in stuff but you really want a good show, I think Iron Fist honestly is totally skippable. You don't have to binge watch it like I did. If you're still kind of curious, watch the first 2-3 episodes, and if you still don't like it after that, there's probably not going to be a ton that changes your mind, again, unless you're a Marvel fanboy, in which you've probably already seen it. So I'm not going to do my normal rating thing. Yeah, I really, in good faith, really can't recommend Iron Fist to people. It's bad for a number of reasons besides the whole like race issue debacle. Iron Fist, the thing is that Iron Fist isn't the worst superhero show ever made. You know, I mean, parts of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., parts of Supergirl, you know, Arrow Season 4, early Gotham, they've all been worse than Iron Fist in some aspects, but I think the reason Iron Fist is getting lit up so bad is because Iron Fist is bad at what it should be doing right. You know, I think a lot of people expect the Iron Fist to be a 13-hour long kung fu movie, and that is not what the show is. So I think that's the reason it's getting such low reviews, and that's kind of the reason why I don't really like it. Like, again, it's not the worst thing ever, like I mentioned before, but it's really, like, it's not a good show. If you're looking for a martial arts show, this probably won't do it for you. There's actually a new martial arts show on AMC called Into the Badlands that has Asian martial artists and really good fight choreography and whatnot. So if you're into seeing something like that, I'd recommend maybe Into the Badlands, but Iron Fist probably won't do it for you. Alright, so moving on, if you guys haven't seen, and I'll put a link up here, I did a video talking about the Iron Fist whitewashing controversy, and I pretty much said that Iron Fist was always white, so it's not whitewashing in the sense of like they took an Asian character and made them white, but it is kind of messed up in the sense that it's a story that's very centered around and based on Asian martial arts culture. Specifically, I believe Iron Fist is like, his fighting style is based off Chinese Kung Fu. The fact that the Kung Fu master of the martial arts universe, the strongest guy in the Marvel universe, as far as like hand-to-hand combat martial arts goes, is a white guy. I thought that idea from the original Iron Fist story was kind of weak, and they could have updated and changed it for the show, and you could have come up with, something new and something interesting. And yeah, a lot of you guys had a lot of interesting things to say about it. A few of you agree with me. A lot of you guys had some interesting responses, so I'm just gonna have a few rebuttals, and I just want to go through them really quick. Okay, so first of all, there are a lot of people who, call me names, like, social justice warrior or whatever, someone maybe like on the left you don't like, and told me to shut up. Look, if you don't like my opinion, dude, don't watch my video. I'm pretty sure there are a bunch of Marvel fanboys that love Iron Fist and love the show and think it's perfect and there's nothing wrong with it. Go watch them. I'm gonna go ahead and give my opinion because I care about comics, I care about these stories, and at the end of the day, I want to see them improve and get better with their adaptions. So, yeah, I'm going to give my opinion. So if you don't like it, maybe you just want to go someplace else. I don't know. Some of you said that, hey, Iron Fist is supposed to be an outsider narrative, and it's really important for him to be white when he goes to Kowloon because he's supposed to feel isolated from his former home. It's still possible to do the outsider narrative story if you picked a character, if your character, say, was like Asian American, say your character was like Chinese American, and their family's been to America forever, they're super Americanized, and then they go to Kowloon, where you have Asian people that are from different parts of Asia, like say from China, that still can create an interesting fish out of water story. If I've actually read some articles by Asian actors and whatnot, and a lot of Asian people who grow up here, sometimes they feel like they're outsiders in America because they're not white, but then they also feel like they're outsiders in places like, for instance, like China, because sometimes the Chinese don't see them as Asian enough if they come from America. The runner-up for the Iron Fist role, Louis Tan, is biracial, white, and Asian, and he said that if they cast him for the role and he was a runner-up, you could have had a very interesting fish out of water story. Now, I would have changed, the Iron Fist show, and you might have gotten something interesting. Picking an Asian American actor or picking someone that's half Asian, half American could have really helped create an interesting story, an interesting narrative that a lot of people hadn't seen before, as opposed to what we got, which was kind of bland. Louis Tan was actually interviewed about how he felt being a runner-up for the Iron Fist role, and in it, he kind of talks about a lot of the difficulties with Asian Americans being casted in American movies, and yeah, he gives some interesting insight, and I guess to like what I'm talking about. So I'll put the article in the description. I think you guys should check that out. He talks about how you really could have had an Asian American in the outsider narrative. It wouldn't have ruined the show. Louis Tan was also a trained martial artist already, so he might have been able to pull off some of those fight scenes better than Finn Jones. Other people had comments like, well, how come no one cares and they change a white character to a minority, but if a minority gets changed, and I think they're specifically talking about Ghost in the Shell, if a minority gets changed to white, why is that a big deal? Well, the reason that's a big deal is because there aren't that many Asian American actors that are put in lead roles. So when there's a chance for, like, for instance, Ghost in the Shell, or even that Death Note trailer that came out, when there's a chance to put an Asian American actor in a lead role because you're dealing with a product that's from Asia, like in that instance it'd be like Japanese anime, and you cast a white person, that's putting an Asian American that could have had their big break, or could have been in a really good franchise, putting them out of a job. As opposed to if you change a character who's white into someone that's a minority, you look at most superhero movies and TV shows and whatnot, they're still full of white people. You're gonna have white main characters, you're gonna have white people in the supporting cast, you're gonna have white extras. So there's never going to be a situation where you look at Hollywood and you're like, oh my god, there aren't enough white actors getting roles. Go watch the Oscars and look at the crowd. It's mostly white people, and minorities just want to be given a chance to break in. So that's why whitewashing is such a big deal. When you're taking some of the few roles that Asian Americans could have, prominently. And a lot of you came up with the reason, he's white in the comics, he's white in the comics, he's white in the comics, why does this matter? Okay, look, I understand that Iron Fist is white in the comics, and I don't think them casting a white Iron Fist is necessarily made the show an abomination. It's just that they played it safe. Had they changed Iron Fist's race, it would have been the progressive change, and in a world where we have a ton of superhero movies and a ton of superhero properties, I think this really could have put the show on a different level. In this day and age, we have so many superhero properties that changing the race of Iron Fist and changing his story around to make it a little bit more progressive than it was would have put the show on a different level instead of the bland show that we got. Another thing, and I hinted at this when I said that Iron Fist was created in the 70s, Iron Fist was created in the time where a lot of people didn't think that an Asian American like superhero could hold his own comic book. Iron Fist was literally based off Bruce Lee. The writer said that he got the idea of Iron Fist by watching Bruce Lee's kung fu movies. If you're gonna do a parody of Bruce Lee, why make him white instead of Asian? Well, that's because at the time they didn't think that an Asian martial arts superhero wouldn't necessarily sell in the 70s, so they made sure he was white. So the whole he's white in the comics thing, I get it. That's who he was, and if you want to play it safe, the safe story, that's fine. But if you had cast an Asian American as Iron Fist, and even in the comics, they're shown that there are Asian Iron Fists at different times. Danny Rand isn't the first or the last Iron Fist. You could have had just a more interesting show. At the end of the day, comic movies and shows are adaptations of the comic, and they change things from the comic all the time. Captain America Civil War was nothing like the comic book Civil War, and it was still a good movie. All I'm saying is that comic loyalty doesn't really matter that much as long as you give people a good show. If you can improve on the source material, I don't think it really matters what was or wasn't in the comic, because they change stuff all the time. My personal opinion of comic book movie changes is, if it improves the story, go ahead and change it. If there's something in the comic that's kind of I don't know if it'll work for a TV or a movie, change it. I only have problem with changes from the comic when they make something that was already good or already fine worse. And my last thing is that, you know, I see polarization kind of on both sides when things come out. You know, there are a lot of people that just want to go after social justice warriors, and they're like, Iron Fist is amazing, you know, this is the best show ever, what are those liberal losers talking about? And it's like, listen, you know this isn't the best show ever. Like, even comparing it to Daredevil, you know Iron Fist is just not that good. I'm sorry, it's just not good. And I think most people watching it can go like, man, you know, at best you can say that the show is decent, but as far as the superhero genre, as far as definitely the martial arts genre, there's better stuff out there. And on the other side, sometimes you have people who say Iron Fist is the worst superhero show ever. You know, this is the worst thing we've ever made. And it's like, listen, there's worse stuff. I mean, have you seen early Smallville, Gotham, early Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Arrow Season 4? Like, there's definitely been worse shows, but again, Iron Fist is bad at what it was trying to do, and that's why it's getting slammed so hard by critics. So people who are like, Iron Fist is the worst show ever, ha 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 ha, it's like, it's not the worst show ever, but yes, it is bad. And the last thing that some people said, they said that, well, you think just because a show has a martial artist, the main character has to be Asian? Maybe you're the real racist. Listen, Iron Fist within the Marvel Comics, you know, as the character is understood as the reader, is supposed to be, if not the, one of the best martial artists on the planet. And not only is he a martial artist, but his fighting style is based off Kung Fu, which originated from China. It is a Chinese way of fighting. So, is it really that hard to think that the best Chinese martial artist, the best user of Kung Fu, is probably someone who's either from China or has Chinese descent because it's from their culture? I'll give you an example. Is it really controversial to say that the best, I don't know, Scottish bagpipe player is Scottish? Well, bagpipe playing comes from Scottish culture, so I don't think it's that hard to assume that the best bagpipe player ever will be a Scottish guy. Now, is every person of Scottish descent going to be a master bagpipe player? No, there are going to be some Scottish people that have no interest in playing bagpipes at all. But the art of playing Scottish bagpipes comes from Scotland. So the best bagpipe player ever, probably a Scottish guy. So yeah, that's pretty much my responses to both Iron Fist show and a lot of your comments. Again, let me know what you think below. This is my first time really doing a video talking about an issue like this, so as more issues tend to come up, as I know they will, within the comic book community and the geek community, I'm going to talk about them. Probably not every video, but once in a while, because I really like doing this stuff. So yeah, if you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment below, and until next time, I will see you all later. Peace.